You know that feeling when your entire world stops in a single moment? When you realize that the person you've built your life with, the man you trusted with everything, including your child, has been lying to you in ways you never thought possible? This is that story. I was a typical American mom. You know the type. Soccer games on Saturdays, family dinners on Sunday, believing that my marriage was solid, that my home was safe, that my 8-year-old daughter Emma could sleep peacefully knowing that both her parents loved her and would protect her at all costs. I was wrong. Catastrophically wrong. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon in March. I remember this detail because Tuesdays were always my cleaning days. My husband, Marcus, had just left for work, Emma was at school, the house was quiet, and I was doing what I'd done 100 times before, tidying up, putting things in order, maintaining the illusion of a perfect life. I walked into Emma's bedroom to change her sheets. The afternoon sun was streaming through the window. Everything looked normal. Everything was normal. Until I picked up her favorite stuffed animal, this soft, brown teddy bear she'd had since she was a baby, the one she called Mr. Snuggles. My fingers caught on something that didn't feel like fabric, something hard, hidden deep inside the bear's chest cavity. I pulled it out carefully. My hands went numb. My breath stopped. It was a camera, a professional-grade surveillance camera, no bigger than a pencil eraser, but unmistakably sophisticated. Military-grade encryption, the kind of equipment you don't just pick up at Best Buy, the kind of equipment someone plans carefully to acquire. And in that moment, every single thing I thought I knew about my life shattered into a million pieces. I didn't panic, not immediately. I think I was in shock. I sat on Emma's bed, holding that tiny camera between my fingers, my mind racing through impossible explanations. Security concerns? A mistake? Maybe Marcus was trying to catch a burglar. No, I knew better. Deep down, I knew exactly what this was. With the camera still in my hand, I did something I'd never done before in my marriage. I started searching, methodically, carefully, like I was collecting evidence for a crime scene, which, as it turned out, I was. I went through Marcus's home office like a woman possessed. I pulled open drawers, I checked behind picture frames, I examined the bookshelves, and what I found made my stomach turn inside out. 7 cameras. 7! Hidden in Emma's room, hidden in the bathroom, hidden in our bedroom, hidden in the guest room. Each one positioned at specific angles, angles that gave perfect views of private spaces, of changing areas, of intimate moments. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold them. I felt like I was going to be sick. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, I found his computer files. I went into Marcus's office and sat at his desk. My legs felt weak, like they might not hold me up anymore. I opened his computer, thank God for muscle memory on passwords, and I found a folder buried deep in his system. Insurance, he'd labeled it. Inside were hundreds of video files, organized by date, organized by location. Some files dated back almost 14 months. I didn't watch them. I couldn't. Just seeing the file names, just understanding what they represented was enough to make me feel like my heart was breaking in real time. My daughter, my precious, innocent 8-year-old daughter had been recorded, without her knowledge, without her consent, in the most private, vulnerable moments of her life. I backed away from the desk slowly, like the computer itself was contaminated. My mind was spinning. Questions were crashing over me like waves. How long had this been happening? How many people had he shown these to? What was he planning to do with them? I made copies of everything. I used a USB drive I found in a drawer, one of Marcus's USB drives, ironically, and I copied every file, every folder, every shred of evidence. My hands moved on autopilot, while my mind screamed. Then I did something smart. I went to my car, parked 3 blocks away from our house, and I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, a criminal defense attorney who specialized in exactly this case. I explained everything, every detail, every camera, every file. Document everything, she told me. Don't confront him. Don't let him know you know. We need to involve law enforcement, and we need to do this carefully. I sat in my car for 2 hours. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, processing the fact that the man I'd married, the man I'd trusted with my life, with my child's life, was a predator. That evening, I made dinner. I made Marcus's favorite, grilled salmon with asparagus. I smiled when he came home. I kissed him like I always did. I played the role of the devoted wife while every cell in my body wanted to scream. Emma was home by then, doing homework at the kitchen table. She was oblivious to the fact that her entire world was about to shift on its axis. She had no idea that the father she loved, the man she trusted to keep her safe, had been violating her in the worst possible way. After dinner, after I'd tucked Emma into bed with a kiss on her forehead, a kiss that felt different now, weighted with knowledge of what he'd done, I turned to Marcus in our bedroom and said, "We need to talk." I closed the door, I locked it, and I placed that tiny camera on the bed between us. The color drained from his face so fast I thought he might pass out. His mouth opened and closed like a fish struggling for air. "What the hell?" he started. "Don't," I cut him off. My voice was steady, cold. "Don't try to lie to me. Not this time. Not about this." I told him everything I'd found. Every camera, every file, every piece of evidence. I watched his face go through a progression of emotions: shock, anger, fear, desperation, like a man watching his entire world collapse in real time. He tried to defend himself. He said it was just security. He said he was protecting the house. He said I was overreacting. He even tried to gaslight me, to make me question what I'd seen with my own eyes. "That's not what this is," I said quietly, "and you know it." Then I told him the truth. I told him I'd already contacted a lawyer. I told him I had copies of everything. I told him that by morning, the police would have evidence of his crimes. I watched the realization dawn on him. This wasn't a problem he could charm his way out of. This wasn't a misunderstanding he could smooth over with apologies. This was over. His secret was out. His life as he knew it was finished. He lunged for his phone. I was faster. I grabbed it and threw it across the room. In that moment, I realized something. I didn't know this man. I had never known him. The person I'd married was a carefully constructed lie. "Stay away from Emma," I said. "From this moment forward, you stay away from her." And then I walked out of that bedroom and locked myself in the guest room. I called my lawyer, I called my mother, and I waited for dawn. Morning came gray and cold. I remember looking out the window of the guest room and thinking how normal everything looked. The birds were still singing, the sun was still coming up, but nothing would ever be normal again. Before Marcus even woke up, I was already in action. I packed a bag for Emma, I wrote a note, and when she came downstairs, sleepy and confused, I told her we were going to Grandma's house for a few days. "Is everything okay?" she asked, reading the tension in my face. "Everything's gonna be okay," I told her, and I meant it. "Daddy's not feeling well, and you're gonna stay with Grandma for a bit. We'll figure out the rest later." She didn't ask questions. Kids are smarter than we give them credit for. She could sense that something was fundamentally wrong. By 10 in the morning, I was sitting in a police station in downtown city talking to a detective named Sarah Chen. I brought my laptop, I brought the USB drive, I brought the tiny camera I'd found in Emma's bear. I brought every shred of evidence, documented and organized. Detective Chen's expression changed as I told her the story. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes hardened. By the end, she looked at me with something that might have been respect. Respect for a mother who'd done the impossible to protect her child. "We're gonna need to get a warrant," she said, "but with this evidence, we'll have one within hours." By noon, the police were at my house. They arrested Marcus as he tried to leave for work. I watched from my mother's house as the news broke. My phone exploded with messages from friends, family members, people from our church community, people from his job. Everyone wanted to know what was happening. I didn't respond to any of them. There was only one person who mattered right now, and she was sitting on my mother's couch, watching cartoons and trying to process why her world had exploded. The investigation that followed was thorough. The police seized every device from our house, every computer, every phone, every external hard drive. They examined the cameras, they reviewed the files, and what they discovered was even worse than I'd initially understood. Marcus hadn't just recorded Emma, he'd been doing this for over a year. He'd been downloading and storing files in cloud storage accounts I didn't know about. He'd been maintaining a systematic record of his crimes. The evidence was irrefutable, the charges were serious, and the prosecutor assured me that with what we had, a conviction was virtually guaranteed. Here's what nobody tells you about discovering something like this. The trauma doesn't end when you find out. It multiplies, it compounds, it metastasizes into every area of your life. I couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake at night replaying moments from our marriage, birthday celebrations, family vacations, quiet mornings drinking coffee. Were they genuine, or was it all a performance? How could I have missed this? How could I have slept next to a predator for 13 years and not known? The guilt was suffocating. Not guilt for what Marcus did, that was entirely on him, but guilt that I hadn't protected Emma, guilt that I hadn't seen the signs, guilt that my daughter had been victimized and I hadn't known. Emma struggled too. After the police explained what had happened, after she understood what her father had done, something inside her changed. The light went out of her eyes. She became withdrawn. She didn't want to be alone in rooms. She didn't want to change clothes in front of windows. She became hyper-vigilant about privacy in ways that broke my heart. At night, she'd come into my room and ask, "Mommy, how could Daddy do that to me?" And I didn't have an answer. How do you explain to an 8-year-old that the person who's supposed to love and protect her betrayed her in the most fundamental way possible? I got her into therapy with a child psychologist who specialized in trauma. Dr. Morrison was patient and kind. She helped Emma process what had happened. She helped her understand that it wasn't her fault, that her body was hers, that she had the right to privacy and safety. And I went to therapy too. I sat in a therapist's office and talked about my marriage to a predator, about the shame I felt, even though I had nothing to be ashamed of, about the anger that was burning through me like acid. You can't pour from an empty cup, my therapist kept telling me. You have to take care of yourself so you can take care of Emma. So I did. I went to the gym, I started journaling, I cut off contact with people who didn't understand what I was going through. I surrounded myself with people who supported me unconditionally. My mother, my best friend Jennifer, a support group for spouses of offenders that met every Thursday night. Slowly, incrementally, I started to heal. Not in a linear way. Some days were better than others. Some days the anger would spike and I'd feel like I was back at square one. But there was progress. There was growth. And through it all, my only focus was Emma. Everything I did was for her. Every decision I made was about helping her heal. The trial lasted 3 weeks. 3 weeks of sitting in a courtroom listening to prosecutors lay out the case against Marcus. 3 weeks of watching him sit at the defense table, looking smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of his crimes. I had to testify. I walked to the stand and I told the truth about finding the camera, about discovering the files, about what it felt like to realize that the man I'd married was a monster. The prosecution was gentle with me, but the defense attorney was brutal. He tried to plant seeds of doubt. He tried to make me second-guess myself. He tried to make me look unreliable. But the evidence was undeniable. The files were undeniable. The forensic experts who examined the cameras and the computers were undeniable. Marcus was found guilty on 8 counts. 8. The judge sentenced him to 12 years in federal prison. 12 years. It wasn't life, but it was substantial. It was justice. Not perfect, but real. When the verdict came down, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel satisfied. I felt something between relief and profound sadness. Relief that Emma was safe, relief that he couldn't hurt her or any other child anymore, but sadness that it had to happen at all. Sadness that my daughter had to go through this. Sadness that our family had been destroyed by one man's choice to be evil. Marcus was also placed on the sex offender registry. His teaching license was revoked. Yes, he was a high school math teacher, which makes this even worse. His career was over. His reputation was destroyed. His freedom was taken away. Some people would celebrate that. They'd say he got what he deserved. And maybe he did, but I couldn't celebrate. I could only grieve for the daughter who'd been violated, for the family that had been destroyed, for the life that had been stolen from us. The civil trial came next. We fought over the house, the assets, custody arrangements. Marcus tried to fight for visitation rights with Emma. The judge shut that down immediately. No contact, no communication, nothing. Emma was protected by law. We sold the house. I couldn't bear to live there anymore. Every room held memories of a life that had turned out to be a lie. We moved to a different neighborhood, a fresh start, a place where Emma could heal without constant reminders of what had happened. 4 years have passed since that day in March when I found the camera in Emma's teddy bear. 4 years of healing, 4 years of rebuilding. Emma is 12 now. She's in middle school. She's doing well in her classes. She has friends. She laughs. She plays soccer. She's a normal kid with an abnormal history, but she's resilient. She's strong. She's a survivor in every sense of the word. Do we still struggle sometimes? Yes. Triggers are unpredictable. A certain song, a certain smell, a certain situation can send her back to that place of fear and violation. But we have tools now. We have coping mechanisms, we have professional support, and we have each other. I never remarried. I'm not sure I ever will. Not because I'm bitter or broken, I'm not, but because right now my focus is on being the best mother I can be and modeling what it means to be a strong, independent woman who doesn't need someone else to complete her. Marcus is still in prison. He'll be there for 8 more years. Every day he's there is a day Emma gets to live her life freely. That's justice. But here's what I want you to understand from my story, and I say this not with anger, but with the clarity that comes from surviving something unimaginable. Trust is good, but vigilance is essential. If you're a parent, if you have children in your life, you need to know what's happening, not in a paranoid way, not in a controlling way, but in a protective way. Know your child's passwords. Know who they're talking to. Ask questions. Pay attention to changes in behavior. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't assume that monsters look like monsters. They don't. They look like teachers. They look like husbands. They look like the nice guy next door. They hide in plain sight, and the only way to stop them is to stay alert. And if you ever find evidence of abuse, if you ever discover something that makes your blood run cold, don't try to handle it alone. Call the police, call a lawyer, report it, protect your children. The system can be slow and imperfect, but it's better than silence. It's better than letting evil continue unchecked. My daughter is healing because I acted, because I didn't ignore what I found, because I chose to be brave when everything in me wanted to fall apart. You have that same power. You have that same choice. Emma asked me recently if I forgave Marcus. I told her the truth. I forgive him for my own sake, because holding on to that anger was only hurting me. But forgiveness doesn't mean I trust him. It doesn't mean what he did wasn't devastating. It just means I'm not going to let him have power over my life anymore. And that's where I am now. That's where we both are. We're survivors. We're fighters. And we're going to be okay.